So here you can see how much the engines drop overnight. Quite a large difference. No doubt one of the hydraulics is leaking, but you can clearly see how much one of the engines has dropped. D was not tightened adequately from the factory. The way we found this out was there is a safety line after the first day out on rough water. The anchor had dropped about halfway out to where the safety line had grabbed it. We proceeded to put it back in, and the next day it did the same thing. So it was obvious that the gypsy clutch was loose. It's an easy fix. You find the wrench that is supplied with the Lumar windlass and you tighten the clutch. Of course, the wrench was not supplied with this particular boat. We looked everywhere for it. The adjustment wrench was not included with the boat. Why on earth would anybody put a hatch lid on without a counter-rotating nut? It's gonna come loose. As a matter of fact, it did come loose. It came loose while we were in the ocean, about 3-foot waves. No big deal, except all of a sudden the nut comes loose. This comes loose, falls to the bottom of the anchor locker, and the hatch blows open. What do you have to do? You can't find anything because it's at the bottom, it's under the rope. We were able to take a piece of paracord out on the water, tie to this cleat, tie to this latch, secure the locker. So 3 quality control things in just the anchor locker alone. Not to mention the obviously misdrilled holes, right? I mean, seriously, how hard is this? It's a horn. You can't put the holes in the right place. So they misdrilled them apparently, and then they re-drilled them. If you'll notice that the horn is not in the middle of the cutout, that's not an unusual thing. It's pretty much what they did to the gas cap. Every single hatch was not adjusted correctly from the factory. These are supposed to be the coolers. They're supposed to hold ice. They are not real good at it to begin with. There's not a lot of insulation on them. Basically, it's a 1-day and re-ice type of cooler. As a matter of fact, they did put counter-rotating or nylock nuts on these, like they should have, but they didn't actually adjust them. So the first thing the user gets to do when they get a new boat is adjust all the hatches. None were set correctly. All were slack and loose. Same thing here, same there. They did supply drain plugs for these 2 hatches. That's wonderful. They also supplied drain plugs for the fish boxes, which do not fit. Look at the fit of this. I mean, seriously. I don't know if this camera does that justice, but it's a 3/8 of an inch gap there, 3/4 of a gap there. I mean, that's just poor. Factory fit and finish, not so much. I mean, ideally you would like to see a nice parallel cutout from here to here, not this. I have no idea why they did that. Everything else looks fairly square. The bottom seam looks square. That is not good. This hatch was not adjusted correctly. What with it being a deck hatch, that's kind of important to not let water come in. So water goes in. So that's something we had to fix quite rapidly. The flag. I mean, seriously? Could you have made that any longer? It's cumbersome. It gets in the ways of the rods, and even better yet, it got loose several times and is now banging on the fiberglass T-top, leaving a nice mark. We tried to adjust that tightly so it would lift off, and sure enough, like so in the waves, and sure enough, before long it would get loose and go back here and start banging. So sucks. The antenna shank was loose and would knock as we're running, and we had to come back in, take the bolt out, spin the antenna about 1.5 times to get it tight back in its holder, put the bolt in, and now the antenna seems to be pretty good. Once again, factory thing. When you put the antenna in, tighten it up. Here is the disaster of a gas cap mount. Now you've got all this space to mount this gas cap, and you had to put it so that the edge of the gas cap gouges into the gel coat. Well, that does a couple things. First of all, it gouges the gel coat. It also puts a side load on the gas cap, so you have to wonder if the O-ring seal is sealing correctly. And the only solution we had was I had to take the gas cap off and take a file and some pliers, basically shorten this edge down a little bit, so now we can get the gas cap on. The cool thing about it is that, see it's jammed right there again. I mean, it's just sloppy. Mount this right here, mount that right there. Why don't you put it in the middle? I mean, it's a big target. Now, when I screw it on, right there, it's starting to hit. Right there, see it? And I'll tighten it up. And we tighten it. Quality control, 100%. Love the seat. Hate the adjustment. Basically unusable. Look how stiff that is. So, I don't know why it's that stiff. I haven't worked on it. The problem with it is that when you do adjust it out, you push it over, everything's good. If you don't sit here with your hand on it, when you're running, you hit a few big waves, this whole thing just, well, it doesn't want to do it now. It only does it when it's running. The whole thing slides back. That will wake you up in a hurry. Matter of fact, it did that probably 6 times. We kept thinking maybe we were hitting the knob. We were not. You get the right wave. You're sitting on this in the right way, as in sit on it. And next thing you know, you're going for a 3-inch ride, and it'll wake you up in a hurry. I still don't know what's wrong with that. There's obviously an issue I need to look at. Whatever reason, it's not latching correctly or completely. Safety issue. I hate to even start talking about the helm. First of all, this guy and this guy are not drilled correctly. When you put it on, they just don't easily thread into their inserts. You have to put this one in, kind of get that one started, put this one in, kind of get that one started, and over a period of time, you just got to work them in. Again, it's the same thing, the same symptom as the issue with the light, or the buzzer, and the gas cap. Those mounts are not put in perfectly the same spot, so it makes it hard to close. We're definitely having issues with the compass. There's something wrong with it. Right now it's pointing due north. That's good. I've got video of it being as much as 35 degrees off for multiple minutes. Seems to have a catch in there. It will rotate around and it'll stop and it'll hold. You can spin the boat. Sometimes the compass won't even spin. There's obviously something wrong with the compass. I don't think it's a an offset problem because right now it is pointing due north, and if I turn all the power on, which I'll do in a second, there will not be any offset. There's an issue with the compass. It showed up on the first run. Once again, I've owned quite a few Ritchie compasses. I've never had any problem. I had one that lasted 18 years. But this one's bad out of the box. It's a shame. Once again, another problem. You'll notice this one is mounted incorrectly. I can't get it to seat. That's the cockpit lights. It's pretty easy to see. These are generally in line. This one's mounted incorrectly. It's a little too deep. Again, this is a quality control issue. When you look down at the switches, and they're all in line except for one, you ought to take a look at it and figure out what's going on at the factory. I don't know if it's not mounted correctly or what's going on, but I guess I'm going to have to dig into that, get behind the console, pull that switch out, figure out. It's not a big issue, but it's aggravating. You can every time you look at these switches, you can tell that one's mismounted. Where's the QC man on this at Pursuit? That should have been obvious. Pet peeve of mine, I've got 3 different boats. I've got a lot of Garmin equipment. These touchscreens degrade in full sunlight. They degrade in salt spray. When they come from the factory, they got sun covers. They're supplied in a boat box. The way Garmin's got the way Pursuit's got this set up, there is no way to cover this except for putting a towel over the top of it, which does nothing besides look stupid. There are magnetic mounts that are designed for these flush mount or flat mount configurations. Why isn't this done? These are $4,000 units. Why not put a flat mount cover or a magnetic flat cover so people like me don't go, well, this is stupid. I don't know. So I'm going to have to buy some magnetic mounts and fix this. I think it's kind of interesting too. This Pursuit logo is rusting. So I don't know what kind of stainless steel they cut this off, but it definitely looks like it's rusty. I mean, it's like, seriously? Okay. Engrave your name and a tag in a metal that rusts, that looks like stainless steel, or is certainly discolored. Can't polish it out. Oh well. Another, whoops. Let's pull the helm back. Let me show you some stuff in there. Alright, so we got the helm cover back. You'll notice I had to tie it with a piece of paracord. It's because one of the safety cables broke. That one's still good. It broke due to a poor crimp. I mean, the cable didn't break, the crimp came loose. It's the crimp. Hey, look at that. Let's see if I can get a picture of that. That's where the eye came off. It wasn't crimped correctly. Slipped right off. One thing I did notice, I have mounted many depth finders myself, and this has to be just about the sloppiest mounts I've ever seen. Could you not have used a template? I mean, you're not catching here. You missed there. That's not even in the glass. This one can't fit. That one's a split hole. Matter of fact, it's coming loose now. So of all the bolts holding this unit in, there's one through the glass, two through the glass, the others are complete misses. Nowhere is it more prevalent than on this one, where you can see somebody at Pursuit actually had to re-glass the opening because it was cut way too big. I mean, look how big this is. My gosh. These units come with a template. Just put the template on the fiberglass and cut to the template. I mean, these things are like an inch off. Again, I have mounted quite a few Garmins, and this is by far the worst job I have ever seen. If you're gonna have to fix a mistake with fiberglass, at least put some gel coat or paint on top of it to keep it from just jumping out at the user. serious quality control right there. So in the cockpit, broken cable, poor mounts, poor fiberglass refinishing. Again, fit and finish is a problem. And then you'll also notice right here and right here where the console goes in, it actually binds up. There's a taper or a misfit here, so when it goes in, it hurts the gel coat. It's just not good. Another issue is on the hydraulic steering. This is an inspection port. It's properly mounted per the instructions to go to a flex tube to go to the vent. How are you supposed to check the fluid level in this device unless the fluid is actually higher than the vent? So I have no way to check to see if that's correct or not. The fluid should be at a higher level. As far as I know, that's half empty. We'll have to inspect that later. I need to call up and find out. My understanding with this remote system, you fill from here and the fluid should be partially visible in this tube. If not, then I don't know. Certainly you'd think it'd be in the manual, but the manual's wrong in several aspects, so that's not a big help. Back to the switch layout. So power steering, when it's on and off, there's no light. Why would you not put a light on that? You don't want to drive the boat without that activated. I mean, when you turn the live well on, a light comes on. When you turn the freshwater on, light comes on. The washdown, light comes on. But yet when you turn the power steering, that switch doesn't even have a light on it. Why? Did somebody run out of switches with lights? The accessory has a light. That accessory has a light. Power steering switch does not. All right, let's start with the engines. First of all, trim position, butt down on both, right here and here. When I start raising them, you'll notice very quickly that they're 2 bars off. The engines are at the same height. Now, this unit can be calibrated to 0. I've had to redo it. To get it to 0, to get to 1 bar at the bottom, but I don't know how to fix it so that it's reading equivalent at the high end. Pretty aggravating. It gives you aggravating. Now I've owned enough. Oh, hey, guess what? My error popped up. I guess y'all heard that. System scan has not been completed. Consult Yamaha dealer. Been there, done that. Both units say it. Let's back to the engine thing. So this was doing this from the first day we ran it. This is quality control at the factory. Maybe the mercury sending switches and the engine cowls they turn yellow when they hit trim. So they're both trimmed at the exact same position. This one's yellow, this one's not. It gives the impression that they're out of sync. As far as I can tell, they're not at this point. As a matter of fact, we'll trim them both down. Now they're dead in sync. It's just the display isn't. 2 bars off. That was doing it from the first time we cranked the engine. That should have been caught at pursuit. Quality control. This little issue is something that has absolutely aggravated the living crap. So let's go to the correct screen. Let's go to vessel. So this is a active captain issue. When you go to the active captain screen that says software updates are up to date, they were not when I got the boat. At the very first cycle of power after what it said was a successful software update, I started getting that error. I called up Garmin. They said if it says it was successfully installed, it was not any issue of theirs. Yamaha says it was obviously a Garmin error, and I have talked to Pursuit about it, and they are not aware of the problem, or at least it's not happening in their other boats, but of course it happens on this one on the very first software update. So maybe they should have tried the automatic update, then they would run into this problem. or if it's just this boat, maybe it's just the boat. Either way, brand new boat, first automatic update, and I'm getting communications errors. I took it to a certified Yamaha dealer. They did some kind of engine scan. They say they fixed it. A couple days later it came back. So I'm going to now take it to another Yamaha certified dealership that has a Garmin rep, and we're going to try to work through it. Again, first update error, both units. Oh well. So my suspicion from an engineering side of it is that the software update causes a communication issue with the excuse me, Yamaha interface. The Yamaha doesn't like it, throws a code, and then the software in the Garmin mimics it. So look how poorly that rod holder is mounted. It's at a significant angle compared to that one. That one's vertical. These are vertical. That one's vertical. That one's not even close. The voltage reading, 12.4, 12.7, that's 0.3 of a volt off. Sometimes it's 0.4. Now, I've talked to Garmin about this. They laughed it off. They said, well, it's only 0.4 of a volt off out of 12, so you're talking a low percentage error. My argument is no, that's not right. 4 to 5/10, a half a tenth of a volt on a 12 volt battery that has a usable range of around 11.9 to 13 volts. So let's just call it 12 to 13 volts is its best, and you're off a half a volt in that accuracy range or in that usable range. You're talking about a half a volt out of 1 volt reading. You're off by 50% of usable capacity. This one charged. This one says 12.45. This one says 12.4. This one's right. This one's reading 12.7. That's wrong. What's odd about it is it's high. I would have expected this to be reading low if it was a poor connection. I've gone back in there. I've actually changed the plugs to each unit, and the plugs make no difference. This unit always reads 0.4, give or take 0.3 to 0.4 high. Again, this should have been picked up right at the Pursuit factory by the Garmin rep. So I don't know what to do about that. Oddly enough, the transducer is a very high-end transducer, and this unit will not read at anything over around 15 miles. Once it gets up on plane, the signal gets real choppy. My other Pursuit boat would read at basically any throttle setting within reasonable waves. This one does not. That's significant when you're trying to find structure offshore to Gulf of Mexico, and as soon as you get up on plane, you start to lose bottom lock or usable bottom readings. It's kind of aggravating. So I don't know if it can be fixed, if it's turbulence. By the way the transducer's mounted, that's what my suspicion is. It's not mounted perfectly flush with the hull. It's not ferried in correctly. I'm gonna see if I can fix that, see if I can smooth that out. Again, quality control installation. The hatch, you gotta love that. Hey, the hatch doesn't close. I mean, you slam the damn thing pretty hard. Guess what? You kick it and it'll close. Quality control issue. This thing, the tackle locker, I thought I was gonna love it. Okay? I mean, this is cool. You got pre-made slides, you got a nice drawer, except for the fact in waves that UDMH plastic is so slick on the tackle boxes, when you hit any kind of a swell to the side, every one of those things comes out. Now, normally that wouldn't be that much of a problem, except for the fact that the hatches don't close well. This one does now, because we spent quite a bit of time at the dock. Actually, it doesn't. Look, the bottom's still pooched out. Kick, closed, the top is closed. That way all those tackle boxes don't slide on the floor as soon as you open the door in any kind of a rolling sea. Number two, adjust the hatches where it'll close from the factory. That would be nice. Quality control issue again, because when you open the door in a rolling sea, all the tackle that's so neatly stored falls out on the deck many times. Fish boxes are an issue. This particular fish, again, all the hatches were misadjusted. This hatch was so crooked that it had zero clearance here. It was mounted at an angle. I'll show you a picture of that. We had to reset the hinges on this, had to rebed the hinges. I mean, seriously, when you look down at this, it was set at an angle. Now the hatches are adjusted correctly. It opens up. The plug right there does not fit in the hole right there. I don't know why. I mean, I know why, because it doesn't. There's a lip right here, and the plug was full round. It's impossible to get it in there. We trimmed the plug a little bit. It kind of fits now. I mean, there's no way that fit from the factory. It's impossible. It can't fit. So did nobody care about that? I don't know. They fit now. These fish lockers aren't really impressive, to be honest with you. They don't hold ice for very long. Actually, they'll lose ice by the end of the day. Something else I don't like about it, every other locker has a catch here to engage this. Fish lockers, neither one do. And what that means then is it's out of travel on the nut for an adjustment. You can see that it's barely grabbing the nylon seal, and that means, I mean, that's just wrong. Wires were never attached to the valves. They were neatly installed. They were wire tied to this loom, to this harness. They were never actually installed to the valves. Well, those stop galvanic corrosion on the brass ball valves to keep them from breaking, because that's what keeps the water from coming into the boat. And quality control missed actually installing the fastener in the wire. Now, that's an easy spot. When you look down, and if the boat's going out to factory and you don't see those two wires, they're not installed. Somebody needs to install that. We did have to already replace this port battery. We went with an X side. I don't know why. This battery was pretty much dead when we got the boat. It wouldn't hold a charge. We did install an onboard Genius charger. Tried to revitalize that battery. Didn't work. Just bought a new one. I know these work. These are normally really good batteries, but for whatever reason, the one that we had would not hold a charge. Brand new boat and battery that wasn't worth having. There are two pumps that are conspicuously missing. Those are the bilge pumps. They are in the bilge, in the back, and 100% virtually impossible to get to. Before I leave this latch was not adjusted correctly. We do have it adjusted now. It seals better. The reason I had concerns about the bilge pump was simply because when we'd back down on a fish, water would come through the tuna door, transom door, it would come in here and pour directly into the bilges, and the bilge pump would come on, and it would come on, and then a little while later it would come on, and then it stopped coming on at vapor lock, at least once that I know of. And I couldn't clear it because there is no master off on the bilge switch, on the bilge circuit. As soon as the batteries are installed, there's several circuits that are always energized, and one of those is the bilge. And it's a great idea if you're tied up to a dock and you don't want to forget about, and you don't want it to flood. By the other hand, the only true way to clear vapor lock on a bilge pump is to cycle the pump on and off a couple times to release the cavitation. Could not do it on the ocean. When I brought it home, I tried to do it once again in the driveway, and it locked up, cavitated a second time. So even in the driveway, I was getting vapor lock on that pump. That's when I realized it was virtually impossible to get to service. I mean, dang. I think it's ridiculous that you've only got one latch on this hatch. This hatch keeps the water out of the bilges. It's a big hatch, it flexes, and guess what? There should be more than one latch. Design issue. We did end up taking a seat out. I don't know if you've noticed that. It wouldn't even open hardly. And we discovered very quickly that with the lack of drink storage, a Yeti cooler fits perfectly in there, and a Yeti cooler will keep ice. The fish boxes don't keep ice. This fish box doesn't keep ice. Those up there keep ice for about a day. Yeti keeps ice for a week. So we took this out, and now we have a Yeti seat, which works better because at least people can sit on it. The other one was so stiff, you couldn't even hardly pull it out. And it was really aggravating people. Again, installation, quality control issue. Let's look at these bilge pumps. Seriously? You literally cannot get to them. My arm, 6'5", I can just barely reach that pump. How am I supposed to change those? Climb in these little holes? On the 2570, this entire section would come out. We had to change it. I know these pumps are not going to last but a year, maybe two. I know they have a 5-year warranty. Yeah, well, you know, when you're on the water and the pump dies, you got to replace it. And crawling into this hole at the bottom of the boat, trying to unsnap that pump, undo that fitting, and redo the connection is a problem. Now, this would not have occurred to me except for the vapor lock on the automatic pump happening a couple times. But now that I've actually tried to work on it, it is horrendous. Speaking of horrendous, when you look at this installation by Pursuit or whoever of these engines, you can already start to see some corrosion right here. So this, I assume, is a spacer plate made out of aluminum. You'll notice there's no washer here. Now, this is a standard Yamaha install on the steering gear. There's a bolt, there's a big washer, there's a rubber shock absorber. This is what it's supposed to look like. You come through here, you've got an aftermarket part. I'm assuming Pursuit built this thing. It's aluminum. It's already starting to corrode. Look at that. And it doesn't even have a washer on it. And you can see that the nut is not much bigger than the slot. Now, this is a big gouge right here. I don't know what that's for. This is a problem. This is a safety issue. When I get a chance, I'm gonna pull this nut off. I'm gonna put a washer on there. I don't even know why this is on there. I've never seen an install like this. Not sure why they didn't just come to the normal Yamaha steering gear. It's only another inch on this link, maybe 1.5 inches. Did they not just get one that was the right length? I don't understand. But that's unsatisfactory after one series of trips in the Gulf. Not good. Mistake. Up front, we have these cute little, look, the door's open again. Actually, I need to turn the batteries off. Oh, that reminds me. The manual's wrong. So when you buy a multi-$100,000 boat and something's not right, you start reading the manual. And you find out real quick, because I am used to this, you got a parallel battery switch setting. It makes sense. You got the house battery, and you got the engine battery. Now you may be wondering why we took a Sharpie and wrote this right here. It's simply because when you're looking down at it, you can't see the factory label. So you got to bend down, and then you get a headache, and you hit your head on that. So instead of putting the label here, where you can't see it from any normal operating position, why don't you just put the label down here? Or we'll fix it with a Sharpie. But either way, the issue is right here where it says basically engine batteries in parallel, where you can combine them. I was used to that in my other boat. I love it in my other boat. I wasn't sure how that worked because I had read the manual and it said it had a battery isolator in here. I don't see a battery isolator. It says right here, port motor isolation, starboard motor isolation. What does that mean? I have no idea. Port motor isolation, starboard motor isolation. What does that go to? I called up Pursuit, so I looked in the manual and it said there are isolators. Doesn't tell me where. I can't find them. I don't think they are. But right here, it says that you could not put these in combination. That's important when you're out on the water. If one battery dies, you need to be able to start the engine. You got to put it in parallel. Excuse me. When you check the manual on page something or another, I'll give you the page number. Guess what? The manual clearly states that the engines on a Pursuit 268S cannot be put in combination. Well, I called up Pursuit, got some help on that one. The customer service guy looked around and found that you could in fact put these in combination. I have since checked that. He was correct. The manual was wrong. I have a real problem with manuals that are wrong. I mean, that's attention to detail once again. If the reference material for the boat is incorrect, how can you expect a customer to figure problems out on their own? How many other issues are in that manual that are incorrect? I don't know. I still have no idea what these do. Port motor isolator and starboard motor isolator. Got no clue. This aft auto bilge ought to have a switch on it or something so I can cycle the automatic bilge to clear vapor lock without unhooking the battery in rough seas, which you can't do. Good news is the vapor lock didn't last too long and it started pumping again. I mean, there may have been seaweed in it. I don't know. It may have been installation corrode. Either way, you can't turn the battery off and cycle power on the automatic bilge. That's a design. And that's a design issue, safety issue. I'm going to install the switch there, guaranteed. Needs one. All my other boats have one. Switch should be on, and if it rains, the boat won't flood. If you have vapor lock or issues like that, you cycle the switch on, off, the cavitation disappears, the pump starts pumping, and you're good. The boat should also have a high water bilge alarm or a counter for the bilge pump, the auto pump to let you know if something's leaking. Doesn't have that. Damn, it doesn't even go down now. This one has been a problem since day one. Damn, we've tried to fix it. We've lubed it, we've tried to polish it, we've done everything we can. You notice it doesn't return. It will go down there and lock. Sometimes it'll come up, sometimes it won't. Sometimes it just sticks way down there in the bottom. This is the only one of these. See it right there, it won't come up. There we go, now it's coming up. Come on, baby, let's go. Just off, you do it enough times. Keep doing it. And it finally works. This is the only one of those that do that. That's quality control. That's aggravating. This one works fine. Ooh, look. Again, little things. This one works fine. This one. Does not. Oh, let's try to fix it. Come on. Come on. There we go. It's still not right. Something we've already done. Pursuit, I think, put 15 drink holders on this boat. I mean, that's a lot of drinking. But they don't have a lot of rod holders. Well, you know, they do sell these things that are a combination of drink and rod holder. You can put your drink in there and you can put a rod in there. So we've already swapped out 4 of these. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I know this is a sport boat, but sometimes you do like to fish out of it. There's no reason not to have a combination. It's the same hole cutout. Just a different piece of hardware. And I don't understand this. Over here, you got a service port. Over here, you got 2 faucets. You got a fresh water and a raw water, and you got no way to work on it. Not only that, it's got one of these fancy tech systems in there instead of just a normal hose with a screw on, and they're kind of hard to find. I mean, you can order them, but I've been on the water enough to know that sometimes that hose blows and you got to go to West Marine and get a replacement hose, and they don't sell, or at least the one I went to does not sell the tech fitting, the quick disconnect fitting that goes into that. So I'm going to have to order some adapters. The only thing that has a really good seal is this live well. Once again, it's got a nut with no anti-rotation device on it. Why? I don't know. How long is that going to stay on there? Well, I'm going to put some Loctite on that one. I mean, seriously? Y'all trying to save money here? Or are you just out of space? Because something just doesn't mount right. Every latch on a boat needs to have a nylon, nylock, locking nut, period. Or it's going to fall off. The radio Garmin seems to work pretty well. Pretty happy with it. I don't have a video of it, but it will occasionally beep an error. It says it loses its GPS signal. It puts an error up there, GPS signal lost. It will beep until you recycle power, then it will come back up. It magically finds the GPS signal. I'm not sure where it's getting its GPS signal. Is it tied into one of these other units or to the main body of this unit? But I have not troubleshot that yet. It's aggravating. I don't understand why it's happening, but there's nothing more annoying than a radio that just randomly starts to beep an error message at you on a clear, calm day for no reason at all. All right. One thing I'd like to remark on is y'all need to buy a shop vac, or you guys are wasting a lot of money on fasteners, because I guarantee you, after a week on the water, there was a lot of hardware in the back of the boat. Screws, washers, things. They just naturally gravitate to the back. I'm assuming every one of those is something that your installation people had lost. Buy a shop vac, or just tell them to pick the stuff up when it drops in the bilge.